Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at Hulk number 344. All right, we are barreling towards the conclusion of the McFarlane era of Hulk. I have my special guest once again, West Coast Avengers, here to talk about this awesome cover and what's inside.
Hello, Daryl. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be talking comics with you.
Especially when it's involving
The
Todd.
Todd father. Yeah. I've heard of him before.
So let's discuss this cover for a minute. Pretty cool one. It's no 340 cover, but I do think it's one of the standout covers of the McFarlane covers in particular.
Yeah, it's you've got your, to quote our friend Jim Rugg, full moon zine. You got your full moon, and it's Hulk with Betty literally in tow. And the thing about this is, for some reason, I don't know why, but it's familiar to me.
Does it
This
does it does it feel a little familiar? I mean,
it
I can't imagine why. If it
ah,
look if the
that's
layout
what
looks
it
a
is.
little familiar.
You know, I the thing about this is it doesn't just feel familiar for ASM 300, but obviously ASM 301. But I got to applaud Todd for taking his layout and then literally making it new again.
We were looking at the cover dates before we started filming, but this one came first by about a
Mhm.
month, followed up by this one. Well, I guess this would have come out the same month as 301 with the
Right,
same layout
right.
again. So kind of funny that I guess he was just in that mindset of,
Well,
circle, but the
yeah,
position of the body and everything, you got this arm going out like that, this one
yeah.
coming forward, you know.
The trade dress is being minorly interfered with, but we got to give Todd some, past Todd in the past some grace, because ASM 300 is double sized. Hulk 345 is also double sized.
Yep.
So within a couple of months, he does 2 double sized issues and then 2 regular issues. So he's allowed to cheat on the cover.
Yeah, and he even inked this one. So he
Mhm.
was working on a double-sized issue, inking it himself, finishing up this run, and getting ready to do another double-sized issue. All, I don't know what his workload was like doing that, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine it had to be somewhat stressful to be meeting
Yeah.
those deadlines. I mean, Amazing Spider-Man being a franchise face of the company book, and
And Hulk not being that far behind. I mean, at this time, Hulk was pretty popular too.
yeah, and I would say probably McFarlane's run helping with that.
Sure.
I don't know where the sales were before, but of course, this is all pales in comparison to what was happening in X-Men at the time. But
Yeah. Seriously.
but still, I mean, yeah, Spider-Man was still like probably the logo. I would say the Marvel logo for a lot
Mhm.
of stuff, and Hulk. I mean, still he was kind of the popularity riding off of the TV show. So
Right, right. And there it is. The Hulk jumps over the moon. There's a nursery rhyme in there somewhere.
I do love this cover though. I wanted to point out something, at least on my copy, is
Mhm.
I know people love newsstands these days and running down newsstands, but on
Yeah.
a Todd book, when you get a newsstand, you miss this.
Yeah, you miss a piece of art.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for my money, personally, I would rather have the direct edition of a Todd book.
I do not disagree with that. All I would add to that is you can always have both.
That's yeah, if you are a true completist.
Yeah. You get 3 pieces of art on this book and the cover.
Yeah.
Corner box, and cover.
Yep.
It's pretty
Yep.
impressive.
Which is funny that McFarlane doesn't do the corner boxes on these.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is I think this is Al Milgrom from the issue where he turned gray, 325
They just
or
kept
324.
reusing it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's jump on into the inside and check this out.
All right.
All right, we're starting out with a military guard here, kind of reminiscing about a girl he met and how he lied to her and said he was an officer. He was hot shotting the night before, and he's about to get a
Well,
tough life lesson here.
Yeah, or end of life lesson. I will say I think that Todd inked this page. I think Todd inked the first 2 pages. They just don't seem off at all from what it's supposed to look like.
Possibly. It's hard to tell because there's not really any places where he could really indulge in the noodling, I think.
The bottom left panel on the second page is where I think it's a giveaway for me. I could be wrong though.
This one?
Yeah, with the face. The face feels like it's
Yeah,
completely on brand for Todd.
I could see that. We've got the 2 characters, Sanders and or is it Saunders? Saunders. I get him
Mhm.
confused with the inker we were
Yeah, with Jim Sanders, yeah.
yeah. So Saunders and Larroquette are now in the thrall of the leader and working as the Redeemer and the Rock.
Right. I do want to point out the Rock is probably the least interesting or dangerous villain I think I've ever seen in a comic book.
In
He is
this
a
form, for sure. He looks a
Yeah,
little cooler later on, but in this form, you're like, "What is that?" Like, I agree.
he's a stone Professor X without the telekinesis.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks pretty lame, at least right there. So they're breaking into the military base where the Gamma bombs are being held. This is what we've been building up to for the last, about 6 issues, I guess, or ever since that X Factor
Mhm.
crossover that you joined me for. We're finally kind of getting to that stage, and the leader is sending them to steal a Gamma bomb. Hop on over. We got our credits page. We see Todd is not inking this full issue, at least.
No.
We got Bob Wychick back. Peter David, of course, is writing it. I always like seeing Joe Rosen as the letterer because he's been around since FF number 1.
He's he's an old letterer. I forgot to do something before we got started. I wanted to look up the meaning of the word Pyrrhic. And I didn't know that that was a word, and the title of this book is Pyrrhic Victory.
Uh,
And Pyrrhic means of a victory won at too great a cost to have been worthwhile for the victor.
hmm.
So it's very Peter David trying to flex vocabulary and
Yeah,
also
definitely.
completely missing it for anybody under the age of like 52.
I probably glanced right over that as a kid reading this. Just like,
Yeah,
I don't
because
know.
it's
I probably did. And I didn't have Google to look it up. So I probably just
right.
like, I don't know.
It doesn't look like a real word.
I probably thought of it as like fire or something like pyro. Or
Mm-hmm.
you could tell Todd didn't ink this
Yeah,
splash though of Bruce and Betty. There's just not enough noodle marks on those faces to be Todd.
yeah. It's very clear. But yeah, the prologue, I guess, of the book is them breaking into the military base. But this story is really about Betty and Bruce.
Yeah, yeah, for the most part. So the last issue is they found Betty. She suddenly appeared out of nowhere, just on the road. They kind of put the search for her on hold while they were doing the looking for the gamma bomb stockpile too.
Mm-hmm.
She just showed up, and they all kind of know that that wasn't a coincidence. They all have that feeling, but at the same time, they weren't going to just ignore Betty and like come back to her later. So they are a little delayed heading to the base. That's why Redeemer and Rock got there first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd like to point out the Felix cameo still here. They're still carrying around that Felix doll.
Yep, haven't lost it from the fair. That
Yeah.
was big prize win there. So pretty much there's a lot of melodrama here of Bruce and his feelings about Betty, Betty and her feelings about Bruce.
Yeah.
The reveal was a couple issues back. The leader saw that she's pregnant when
Mm-hmm.
he had her captive. And a lot of this is like in her head deciding whether or not to tell him. And
This,
maybe not on this page, but that's what's going on over the next couple pages, I believe.
yeah, the vibe of this comic is almost a soap opera.
Yeah, it's very soap opera-ish.
Yeah.
It's not quite, Claremontian X-Men, but it is very, very soap opera-ish.
We get our greatest cameo, maybe of all time in comics.
RoboCop.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I loved turning the page and seeing that. I mean, it's just a shame that it wasn't the headpiece wasn't on.
Yeah, well, they probably couldn't. They barely use Peter Weller's likeness. If you know your movies and your pop culture, you know what you're looking at when you see the
Yep.
name Murphy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So while Bruce and Betty are having their powwow, Rick and Clay go see a movie, I guess, to like kill some time. Or they're at least hanging out by the movie theater.
Yeah, yeah, not exactly at the movies, but at the movie theater. And then you get a little chopping mall poster, which is pretty cool. It's interesting because if you look at this bottom right panel, I think we're seeing a Eddie Brock prototype.
Yeah, yeah, he's a little more elongated face, but
Yeah.
he probably it would it be a prototype? Because like we said, this has
Oh,
already
that's
been
true.
out.
That's true.
This
He
has
just
already been
yeah.
out.
Yeah, he's changing the face a little bit, but not
Yeah.
too much.
I do like this panel. I wonder if this is a case of when in doubt, black it out
Mhm.
situation though, because the bottom mouth looks like the shadow lands kind of weird around there. I feel
Yeah.
like that maybe something happened there that he had to like kind of fix it.
You can definitely see the shortcuts that he used, like the the faces on all of these panels, they're wider angles, so you don't have to draw too much detail. The the lines in the background on that third panel, there's no detail whatsoever. Like he might have actually been doing roughs, and that's it
Mhm.
on this. And letting Wyacek or Wyacek, I don't know how to say his name,
Yeah,
Wyacek, do
filling
the
that
heavy
down.
lifting.
Maybe so. I mean, like we said, he just finished up a double issue on Amazing Spider-Man, and probably he was already focusing a lot of his energy towards that, knowing that he was wrapping this run up.
Sure, sure.
Um,
And the next pages though have more detail.
yeah, it's more fun to draw these action pages.
Yeah.
But I do like this. I think with Rick and Clay here discussing what their next move is, and Clay has determined that the only way to bring this Gamma Bomb situation to light is for them to steal one themselves. So
Yeah,
now
yeah.
they have
Everybody's
kind of a similar plan.
this is a very American thing. Everybody needs a bomb.
Yeah. And I guess his logic is we need to steal one and just like show it to the people and be like, look what we have. We
Yeah.
stole it. Not to like threaten anybody with it, obviously, but just to bring light to the situation because they've already tried to tip the press off. And I guess it just wasn't
Nobody believes
getting,
them.
yeah, the wheels weren't turning the way they wanted it to turn just yet. So
Yeah.
now, though, we get to see what Rock can actually do. And he pretty much just turns into like a spiky tornado.
It's really not that interesting.
But
It's
he rips through tanks and stuff.
yeah, I mean, like, you can I don't know. Peter David needed a better idea with this guy. He's so boring looking, and then all of a sudden he turns into a tornado, aka wheelchair Tasmanian devil.
And I don't know why they put him in like a chair. He had been in a wheelchair earlier because he'd gotten hurt like in a Hulkbuster training mission, but
Yeah.
he'd recovered because the last couple times we've seen him, he was like just up walking around normal. So why did he stick him back in like a chair? I don't know. But and why be in this chair form? Because later on we see that he can like sprout arms and legs, which
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
lot cooler, you know.
it's very strange.
So anyway, didn't really love this panel up here. I thought it was just not much going on of interest to
Yeah.
like. This looks pretty good. I like the bloody hand here to let you know that they're tearing through these soldiers.
Right, they're laying waste. I mean, they did throw the first page, they threw that guy 2 miles, and,
Yeah,
unless he landed in cotton candy, I don't think he survived that.
he rolled with it.
Yeah.
Tuck and roll.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just a boring comic, I'm not gonna lie.
but
You get
you get this cool ad.
yeah, yeah, that is I mean, it's a great storyline.
Yeah. All right, so now we got Bruce and Betty. This is kind of where she's going through her mind of
Mhm.
like, should I tell him? Just kind of going through the typical pain of being married to someone who turns into a rage monster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's drama, it's talking, it's a relationship, but it's just a lot of repeating the same kind of things.
Hmm. What do you think about this panel with Bruce's glasses. Like I feel like his glasses get bigger and smaller depending on the panel sometimes.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of reflection because, I guess Todd maybe doesn't wanna draw eyes, but reminds me of a little bit of a little Twitch from Spawn. Obviously, this predates Twitch by 5 years or so, but
Yeah.
kinda
Yeah, but you
still
can see
reminds
what
me of that.
he was gonna build up to that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't have much. I mean, like, it's nice to look at Todd's art. There's way too much text on this. I do like how the van that they've been driving around in it's all window, and it's a submarine.
There's not much character to the van really either. Although, last issue I think they cracked the window on it and it's fixed now. I made a point, and when I made the last one, I was like, "Oh, the window's cracked. Let's see if that sticks the next issue," and it does not.
I The one thing I do like about this is that they walk away, they get away from people, and and she's basically just like, "We're gonna wait till the sun goes down,
Mhm.
and me and Hulk are gonna have a chat." It does build a little bit to, is this gonna go violent or is this gonna go civil?
And it's an interesting thought of Betty too, saying like, "For us to reconcile, I've got to reconcile with your other half."
Yeah.
So there's, it's pretty good drama, really. And honestly, the Gray Hulk and Betty have a different relationship. The Green Hulk did care, like outwardly cared for Betty. When something was happening to Betty, it made him more enraged. He was
Mhm.
always concerned about Betty. The Gray Hulk this whole time has been acting as if he does not care
Right.
about Betty,
He's an
but he
ego.
really does.
Yeah. He's egotistical as the Gray Hulk. I think also it would have helped if Todd didn't have these crazy deadlines, because I think that Peter David wrote a script around knowing that, like, Todd was doing 2 books and there's a lot of text. Instead of, you could have taken the last 3 pages and done it in one, maybe even half a page.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, they're just trying to build up the tension of, Betty and Bruce kind of reconciling their differences, or well, their where they were split up for a while. I mean, she did
Mhm.
run off with another dude for a while, and
She
then
did.
she ran off from him.
Yeah,
Panels like this are where I can tell that Todd was taking some shortcuts.
sure.
Like even like just instead of silhouetting it, it's just these like kind of lines.
Just a little circle of white in the paper to show the
Yeah.
glasses.
So they're gonna wait it out until the sun goes down. Rick and Clay are chatting about it in the van, and even Rick's like, "Whoa, the Hulk's about to come out. We better go get involved."
And there's old Sackhead.
It's looking especially strong there.
I thought this was interesting because I don't know who he's talking to. Like, I don't know who's spying on him. Are we supposed to know as the reader, or is this
No,
something that pays off later
this is
completely?
a payoff later. Um, this is setting up the next thing, which of course the next thing is going to be Joe Fixit, but
Right.
the way this story concludes, obviously, there's got to be an out
Mhm.
for it, and this is kind of setting that up, and it's the first we see of it, and that's very comic book of its time. We're
Yeah.
getting ready to wrap up our what the plot line that's been going on. We got to start kind of planting some seeds for the next plot line. So Todd taking a shortcut here on the transformation,
Oh, yeah.
just Betty's face. But I do like that Betty's face is pretty much unreactive except for the single tear dropping down.
Yeah. Yes, it makes sense, like, when you think about it, but yeah, it's completely a shortcut, but that is the same image, just added the tear on each one of them subsequently and changed the background color, and that's it.
The dialogue between the Hulk and Betty is pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. I mean, this is the next couple of, the interaction between Hulk and Betty is helped by some great art, great coloring too. I really dig the purple, even though I'm sure a lot of people would say it's not supposed to look like that. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a colorist.
You mean like the on the shadow, like on this panel?
On the background color.
Oh, like up right here.
Yeah, and then on the page before it too. Yeah, and then it gets even
Oh,
more purple as
yeah.
we.
I mean, but it's with the Hulk being gray, you kind of have to do something to contrast that, but still show that it's nighttime.
Sure, sure.
So I mean, like if you just go straight black, then the Hulk will start fading into the black.
Hmm.
And it is just after sunset. It's not like, you know, 3 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Although the full moon does come up pretty quick. And it's
Yeah.
gigantic.
Yeah. That full moon's just there. I look, I'm not an artist, but I'm starting to understand how there are some terrible tangents. Hulk's shirt is a bad tangent next to Betty. It almost looks like she's wearing a cape in pieces here, and her arm, like the white
Oh, like right
sleeve on
here.
the right. Yeah, it's just there's some strangeness going on there.
Mhm.
You virtually have them wearing the same colors.
Yeah, because she's wearing the same shield outfit that
Mhm.
Bruce is too.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I can
still a
definitely
cool
see that.
image there. Basically, it's like a second after the cover.
Yep.
He turns and then he get his backside.
This panel stands out to me as a not inked by Todd panel. It's just like
Mhm.
the last few issues of having the Todd inks really make it when he is not being inking himself how much it stands out.
Yeah, he looks less brutal when he's
Yeah.
not being inked by Todd.
All right, well, let's get back to the most interesting villain character ever made, and the other guy in just a battle suit. And they infiltrate. So here's where he turns into the more like a rock creature with
Yeah, he
arms
kind
and
of goes
legs.
like Sandman, except he's rock.
That's more interesting than his wheelchair form.
Yeah, the only problem is like it's such a far there's no close-ups, there's not enough detail on it for it to look. If Todd was inking it, it would look a lot cooler.
Yeah, and I think it probably would have been a bigger panel. So I wonder if like he knew he wasn't going to be inking it, and he doesn't draw it in a way that he would have preferred to really
Mhm.
go all out on something like that. And even this panel of the gamma bombs, I felt like it was kind of more deserving of a bigger part of the page to show this like massive stockpile because it's all been building up to this, and this is our
Yeah,
first look at it.
it's really hard to there's not a lot of detail. I really do think that he did mostly layouts on some of this stuff, and that's why you're not getting even great perspective on it.
Back to Betty and the Hulk. They are now up on top of a cold mountaintop.
Yes,
And
yes, they're somewhere. The full moon's still out.
uh
There's a very mysterious light source on the last panel. I'm not sure what the light source is, but
I
um,
like the layout of this page though. It's more
mhm.
interesting than we've seen throughout the issue so far.
Yes,
With it's like it is like a splash page with like panels in the middle.
it's Todd doing his weird layouts for a little bit, and I always dig it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole composition of this page is much more interesting. But they
Yeah.
go into their discussion about the Hulk being part of Banner, and of course he argues that
Hmm.
the, these pages too. I think are good layouts.
I think this one on the left is the best non Hulk 340 image that Todd put forth on an interior Hulk page. I've always loved this.
Yeah, I like the shadow of it. Um, my only complaint is Betty almost looks just like a nude figure there. You
Yeah,
can't
she
really see her clothes. On her shoulders maybe, but the rest of
but
it.
the perspective and he's still hunched over and he's still 17 times the size of her.
Mhm.
I've always thought that that's just great. And then the next page too, I think is great. But there's something that I always loved about the iconic kind of silhouette of the Hulk there.
Yeah, I mean, both of these pages I think are great. Yeah, that's definitely a solid one. Um, this almost looks like maybe Todd had a little bit more hand on the ink.
Yeah, I can
At
see
least on
that.
the Hulk's, at least on, but even this page, like this panel, look at this, look at the noodle marks there on the Hulk's face.
Yeah, above the brow.
Hmm.
Yeah, these last 4 or 5 pages, whatever it is, are the only reason why I really like this comic.
Yeah, and the cover is a good one.
Yeah, yeah. This one too, the purple, the full moon, the tattered clothing. She's got a hand on the Hulk. Like if he had inked this completely, it would
Hmm.
look this would be so much more iconic. image wise. That's still, the text is not doing much for me.
The Hulk's hair flipping around. He got extra hair right there.
Yeah, it looks like he almost has a toupee that's flying off.
Yeah. Sometimes the way Todd does do the Hulk's hair, it's almost like he's drawing the face and the body, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I got to put hair on him." And he like kind of just puts like little like tuft lines up there.
Yeah, yeah. And the Hulk's just being a stubborn idiot. That's it. I'm out of here. You said you'd talk. I lied. I do that sometimes.
And that's setting up a callback.
Yes. I feel like Peter David's trying to channel his inner Han Solo with some of this dialogue.
Yeah, I mean the Hulk is that, I guess.
Yeah,
to some degree. He's a scoundrel, like the Grey Hulk is. He's a scoundrel with really like a heart of gold. Even in the last issue when they found Betty after he like tore apart these robots, and Betty was hurt, and there's a scene where he yells out at her, like, when she gets tossed to the side, he's like, "Betty!" But then when it's over, he's like, "I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat." And Rick chews him out, and he's just like, "Okay, I'll go get food for everybody. I'll be back in a little bit."
Yeah, he calls her kiddo. It's yeah. Like I said, the end of this book is a lot better than the beginning of it, and I do love the. It's another one of these splash pages with the 3 panels in it, and the silhouette, the full moon, all of it. I dig it.
Yeah, and really all of this is to also show that the Hulk is just another part of Banner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they aren't really two separate entities. They're the same guy, but just in the daytime he's more repressed, and in the nighttime he lets loose.
Right. And she ends up having to pull the pregnant card, which she hesitated doing. And then we get
Mr. Softy comes out.
Yeah.
And that's a good ending, I think, too, with a panel.
Mm-hmm.
The moon moves around to frame the Hulk throughout these pages pretty well.
Yeah. It's the perfect it is a lighting expert keeps following him around.
Yeah. Like in this one, it's like way off there in the distance over the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the page, it's right behind him. Not on this page. Now it's up in the sky a little bit.
Yep. And then it's above him again.
A little higher.
Silhouetting him.
And now right behind him again.
Yeah. That moon is just, it's alive.
It does what it needs to do along with Bruce Banner's glasses, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's it. So you didn't particularly love this one?
No, not really. I thought, if we're 4 issues away from where we were when we recorded last time with 340, and 340 was, like I said, I think it's McFarlane's best book. And this is not, but not for fault of McFarlane. I just think that the story, Peter David, he's a good writer, but there's a little too much. It is fluff, but I wonder if it's fluff because of the deadlines.
It very well could be, and knowing that getting to this last chapter that's going to be a double-sized one, he may have been giving a breather both for the storyline and for Todd. Since the Wolverine issue, we've had Man-Bull fight with the leader and what's his name, Half-Life again, and fighting some yellow robots.
Yeah, in the last issue.
It's been a lot of action each issue, like Monster of the Month kind of stuff. So this is kind of like the calm before the storm of like, we're getting ready to wrap the whole thing up.
Yeah. I guess one of the other things is that, the whole thing with Betty just, it doesn't interest, like there should be a way to write interesting superheroes without it revolving around a love story. I
agree. And I'll be honest, I've never been a big fan of Betty's role in the Hulk's mythos. Yeah. I'm a Jarella guy. I love Jarella.
Yeah, Jarella's great.
Yeah. But anytime Betty gets too involved in it, I'm always kind of like, ugh. don't love Betty. I wish
Yeah.
Betty would kind of go away, Betty. You don't want to be there anyway.
Yeah, you're not happy you ran off before. You can just go away. But
Yeah.
overall, the imagery in this book still I still enjoy a lot of the imagery in it.
I do think the workload in general has taken a little bit of a toll. You can tell he probably enjoyed doing those last 4 or 5 pages that we discussed, and
Yeah.
because he tried to make more interesting layouts than anywhere else in the book. So,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah, and the colorist had a fun time, it looked like.
Well, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up? I feel like we're letting the audience down. We're just kind of very morose on this one compared to the last couple ones we've done.
I mean, it's your channels read your comics. It doesn't say that they have to be the best. I have a not a contentious, but I have a back and forth relationship with Copper Age writing or,
Uh,
early modern, late Copper. And the melodrama of a lot of these books doesn't match up to some of the great writing that would come, 10 years later in Marvel. But, yeah, I love Todd, but this book just didn't do it for me. But that doesn't mean, you shouldn't read it. It is one of those rare things still, this era of comics that sure, Peter David was constructing a bigger storyline, but each issue was a standalone issue.
it definitely was, and that's part of this era that I actually really enjoy. Is that it really was pick this month up, and you'll get pretty much a complete narrative of this one chapter.
Yeah.
And if you liked it enough, come back for the next month for the ongoing plot that's developing. And nowadays, like most, at least Marvel and DC modern stuff, you don't really get that in a single monthly book. And I think that's a
No.
lot to ask the audience for whatever they are, like $4 or $5 every month, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But, and with the good of what you were just saying comes the bad because Claremont would leave a lot of things hanging and
Yeah,
those
indefinitely.
threads would never get tied off. So there is a price to pay for a long storyline that has single issues versus a 4 or 5 or 6 parter.
Right. But see, that's where I would say Peter David did do this particular storyline pretty well.
Mhm.
Um, I think what is the trade paperback you have? Does it
It's called
start with
Ground
340?
Yeah, it's Ground Zero. It's 340 through 346. So it goes to that last issue that Larson does the finishes on Todd's layouts.
So I really think this story started with those X Factor issues we read.
Yeah, it did.
And then I guess there was just some meandering there for an issue or two before we got to the 340. But I think Peter David does a good job of like establishing this like running plot, giving us our month to month monster of the month kind of Hulk
Mhm.
fights this character, then the next issue he fights this character, build up, and we're about to hit a conclusion that's a pretty satisfying ending. And then the next era of Hulk starts.
Right.
Whereas you're saying, like with Claremont and X-Men, things did just kind of, here's a new story element. Isn't this cool? We're going to do
Yeah.
something with it. We're not really going to complete it. And then we're going to kind of change direction for a while. And if Claremont feels like it and he's going to be on the title 10 years from now, maybe he'll revisit this.
Yeah, I guess Peter David did a better job. And, and just because I didn't like this particular issue doesn't mean I don't like, I think it's trash or anything like that. But yeah, just I want what I want from certain comics. Sometimes you want all action all the time, or you want storylines that aren't based upon love. There's a
Yeah,
lot of environmental stuff that the Hulk would get into, and the inner torment too
mhm,
of him being a Hulk. So,
definitely.
but it's no 340, but I still like it.
Not many issues would be that
No,
340.
no, no.
All right. Well, I guess that's all we got. You wanna give the mantra?
Yeah, I think it's time for us to say, "See Todd, buy Todd," and that goes for all Todd.
And until next time.
Read your comics.